Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. Coming up here on today's show, the top 10 free agents that the Silver and Black could potentially sign before training camp. And before we get into our top 10 list, huge shout out to today's sponsor, Panda Sups. And if you haven't already, go to pandasups.com. Use code Raiders for 25% off. I recommend right now with how hot it's been, it's really, really important to stay hydrated. Get your hands on some BCAAs. Don't worry, the link's going to be available for you guys down in the comments and in the description of today's show. So what I wanted to do here is go from 10 and work my way down to 1. And I'm also going to sprinkle in some honorable mentions because some of the names are big-name free agents, and if the Raiders signed them, I obviously would not be upset. But I try to do this based on overall need and also how well they would fit with the Raiders either offensively or defensively. Before I give you my top 10 list, if you could right now, you're sitting in the room, Josh McDaniels, you're sitting in the room with Dave Ziegler. They look at you, and they go, you get one player to sign right now. Who would it be? Be realistic with me. The one player you would want the Raiders to sign before the season. I'll also say that these rankings are based on contracts, where I don't think that the Raiders are going to break the bank and go out and get a big-name guy. They're going to go out and get guys that they have relationships with, that they have connections with, and that they're not going to have to go out and break the bank. So please, down in the comments, one player you would want the Raiders to sign before the season. Let's go to number 10 here on my list. It's Trey Flowers at the edge position. The only reason why Flowers is on this list is because he has past connections with McDaniels and he has connections with Dave Ziegler. Yes, I know there's some Raider fans out there that are worried about Tyree Wilson. I'm confident that he's going to have a hell of a season. He's going to have a hell of a career. I know Chandler Jones struggled a little bit last season. To me, Flowers could be that Jordan Willis type of player where if Willis, who has not participated at all this entire offseason, whether that be OTAs or whether that be mandatory minicamp, he wasn't there. And if they wanted another player of that caliber, then okay, this is exactly where you're going to enter Trey Flowers, who some of his best seasons came when he was with the New England Patriots. Then he went over to the Matt Patricia Lions team. He ended up battling some injuries, and I do think he would not cost a lot of money. I know this. If I was Trey Flowers, I'd want to go to the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's go to number 9 here, which is going to make some people freak out a little bit. It's Dalvin Cook. And this is push the panic button. That's all this one is here. And if Josh Jacobs says, I want a massive contract extension, I will not play on the franchise tag, I will not play on this team unless you give me a massive contract, and says like legitimately going to hold out, the only running back that I could forecast this team going out and signing in free agency is Dalvin Cook. Why? Right now, Raiders running back coach Kennedy Polamalu, previously with the Minnesota Vikings. It was one of the biggest reasons why this team decided to go out and get Amir Abdullah last offseason. They re-signed Abdullah. Do I want Dalvin Cook on this team? No, he was a very inefficient running back last season, realistically by almost every single metric you would look at. When you look at how this team likes to run the football, Jacobs is who we want, and that's not really going to change my opinion. However, if the Raiders were to sign a running back because the Jacobs situation does get a little bit tricky and they're not 100% sold on a Zamir White, maybe a Brandon Bolden, Sincere McCormick, then I think that Dalvin Cook is a name to keep in mind. Let's go to number 8 here. I'm going to go Chris Wormley, an offensive tackle. Played last season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's just a big body on the interior. And I would say he's probably a better run stopper than being able to get after the quarterback. 6'5", 300-pound, big dude up the middle. And for the Raiders, I like Rob Leonard. He's a good defensive line coach. They don't necessarily have a lot of star power, but for this team as it stands right now, Neil Farrell Jr. is a question mark. Byron Young is a rookie. I do expect Bilal Nichols to be a solid player. Jerry Tillery, I might make a story about this because I was told he's not a lock to make this team. Nesta Jade Silvera is a great run stopper. Can't do anything else besides that. Then you got John Jenkins, Adam Butler, and then Matthew Butler. Depending on how many DTs end up making this roster could really intrigue me here with Wormley, but overall, I still want the Raiders to add some extra depth to the defense, and if I believe that there is a player out there that could potentially help them on the offensive or defensive side of the football, chances are you're going to see him here on this video. If the Raiders go out and sign any player on this list, if the Raiders go out and sign a player in the middle of July, I'll take all the content I can get right now. I'll be going live here on this show. I don't want you to miss Jeremy Chugs and I having a good time. And for the next 365 days, I got a special offer. It's going to be 100% free, so make sure you don't miss that deal. Hit that subscribe button. Ooh, it is a leap year, 366. I should know that. It's my anniversary. Number 7, it's Duron Harmon at safety. I would love for the Raiders to bring back Harmon. I like Marcus Epps. I want Trevon Merrick to work. I like Chris Smith. The safety position here for the Raiders is a lot deeper than what they get credit for. But you know what? He was a hell of a player last season. You could make the legitimate argument, and this may be not saying a lot, minus Max Crosby, Duron Harmon was the best player on the Raiders defense last season. Is anybody going to argue that? Sure, there's probably a few people out there, and that's totally fine. But if you bring in Harmon, who you already know can play this defense, and then that, to me, gives Trevon Merrick more the ability to play closer to the box. Because what I think that they're going to do here is they're going to put Marcus Epps up closer, strong safety in the box. They're going to put Trevon Merrick, same thing. They're going to see how well he plays at free safety. I know they are very high on Chris Smith. And if they were to bring in Harmon, I actually think that ultimately puts Isaiah Paulomeo as a linebacker, who they have been trying to work him in at linebacker a little bit more. Sorry, Roderick Teamer. Sorry, Jaquan Johnson. You don't end up making this roster. Let's go to number 6 here on my free agents list. Matt Ioannidis. And another defensive tackle who doesn't do anything spectacular, but for the Raiders, I will always say that the game is won in the trenches. And I have been doing this show for 4 or 5 years at this point, and I feel like every single year that I do this, I got to talk about defensive tackle. I got to talk about how much this team is just getting whooped. Not only just beat, whooped on the interior. They continue to be one of the worst defensive tackle teams in the league. I know they want to go with depth. I know what they want to go with rotation. They want to build some of these younger players. But at the end of the day, man, I got to rely on this team being able to get after the quarterback. It can't just be the Max Crosby show. You know, I want to see Chandler Jones step up. I want to see Tyree Wilson step up. And they need to have fresh interior defensive linemen to do that. That's going to help out your linebackers. That's going to help out a Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo. That's going to help out a Nate Hobbs. It's going to help out Duke Shelley. If you can't win in the trenches, your secondary, I'm sorry, it's going to continue to look very, very bad. And I can't stand that any longer. Now, today's show is one more time presented by Panda Sups. And I got my top 5 list coming up here in just a second. But I do want to tell y'all a little bit more about some of the BCAs, about some of the products that Panda Sups continues to put out there and roll out. When I work out, products I always use the protein. You can always get your hands on that as well. But the one product, especially during the summer, especially if you like to have a few cold drinks, and with how hot it's been, you got to go try out the BCAs. So for those that don't know what BCA stands for, it stands for Branch Chain Amino Acids. And then the EAA stands for Essential Amino Acids. And hydration are all important factors to consider, especially during the summer when the body's hydration needs increase due to higher temperatures and increased physical activity. BCAAs play a vital role in muscle protein synthesis and can help support muscle recovery and growth. EAAs are crucial for protein synthesis, muscle repair, and overall health. They support energy production and immune function. So for me, when I'm feeling really sluggish in the morning, it helps me to take a little bit of this to get my workout jump started. In summary, BCAAs and EAAs can support muscle recovery, growth, and overall health, while proper hydration is crucial for maintaining bodily functions and preventing dehydration. Considering these factors during the summer can help optimize performance, support recovery, and promote overall well-being. And some of y'all are like, all right, Mitch, well, what can I mix it with? You just mix it with water. Like, I know Alex, super picky when it comes to certain drinks. It's not overly sweet. You can mix it with water. You can even mix it in with a few drinks. I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty good. But anything that you can get Panda Sups, I promise you, you're going to enjoy. And the guy, he's a diehard Raider fan who owns the company. So go support one of your own. It's pandasups.com. Code Raiders available to all y'all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. Let's go to number 5. Panda Sups continues to set the bar high. So let's go to Anthony Barr. At number 5 on my list of free agents that McDaniels and Ziegler could potentially sign before Raiders training camp. The Raiders, I still think they could use another linebacker. And depending on what type of defense they decide to run, they might roll out just 2 linebackers a lot for their starting defense, which is a Robert Spillane and it's Divine Diablo, I'm not that confident in Spillane. I'm sorry. I would rather have Anthony Barr out there as a starting linebacker than Spillane at this point. Luke Masterson had 55 tackles last season, but he was a UDFA. They went out, they got Amari Burney, who I've heard very good things about. He's a hell of an athlete, rookie out of Florida, but still it's a 6th-round pick. Besides that, a lot of unknowns. I do like me some Drake Thomas, the UDFA from North Carolina State. It's just, how many times have we just relied on UDFAs or very low-drafted players to help out this defense? On the linebacker position, it seems like just way too long. Let's go to number 4 here. It's Marcus Peters, and I've talked about Peters a ton. This month, last month, he is connected with the Raiders. He had a visit with this team on May 15th. If they use him in the correct way, he can be a hell of a player for this team. Can be a veteran with a very young cornerback group. If the Raiders are going to play a lot of press man coverage, which is what they are going to run, he can play on the outside. He can mix and match with Nate Hobbs, Duke Shelley. And if you add Peters, that's also going to help you out with some turnovers, whether it's interceptions, whether it's forced fumbles, and maybe most importantly, he's going to bring some swagger, which, my God, the Raiders need some freaking swagger. We got some more names coming up top 3, but guess what? I did this list based on talent, but I also did it based on overall team need. What's the Raiders' biggest team need as it stands right now? We went through free agency. We went through the NFL draft. We went through May. We went through June. We're now sitting here in July. What's the Raiders' biggest team need? I might just wrap this one up and just say, yeah, probably just list as defense entirely. But defensive tackle, linebacker, edge, some of y'all might even say quarterback. Let's go to number 3 here. It's John Johnson. I like John a lot, and I do think that he would be a good fit with this defense. It would mean probably not so good things for Trevon Merrick, and Johnson has been linked to the silver and black before. If you're looking for more of that free safety, center fielder, better overall coverage safety, this is the guy, right? He's a better coverage safety than Merrick, and I was really high on Merrick when he first came out of TCU, and I want him to get another opportunity because just like Divine Diablo, I want Merrick to have another year in the same defense. Switching defenses is the amount of times that some of these young guys are asked. It's just simply not fair. But if this team does want to run 3 safeties, which I've been told that that's something that this team could potentially do, they might not roll out 3 linebackers and they might roll with 3 safeties. Well, hey, Epps, Merrick, and then John Johnson would be 3 very talented safeties there. Let's go to number 2 here. It's Rashaan Evans, and another player that's got a lot of Patrick Graham connections, and it's another linebacker that I have confidence in. He had 159 tackles last season, 2 sacks, and for somebody that you need a run stopper, you need to find your Denzel Perriman replacement. I get that McDaniels and Ziegler are confident in Spillane, but Rashaan Evans is a better player right now than Spillane is. And there's also those connections with Mike Vrabel. Anytime there's past connections, you know that this Raiders organization, they like to look at that. And then you can also help out Amari Burney, Drake Thomas, not push them into the fire right away, put them in special teams where they should be playing in year 1, which now puts me at number 1. And if you've watched the show before, you'll know I'm a big Kyle Van Noy fan. And the reason why I like Van Noy, it's versatility. I've said that they should call him Kyle Versatility Noy, and that's what it takes to be a premier player and Patrick Graham / be a premier player with McDaniels and Ziegler. He can play edge. He can play linebacker. You can drop him back into coverage. He can do a lot of different things. He has worked on pass regimes with Rob Leonard. He has worked on pass regimes with Patrick Graham. He has worked previously with Brian Flores, who has his connections to McDaniels and Ziegler. This guy's got all the connections in the world, and last season, he played in the AFC West with the Chargers. So if you want a player who I really, truly believe would be the most ready day 1 player to step in right now and be able to compete for a starting spot on this Raiders defense, it's Kyle Van Noy, and that is the reason why he will continue to be number 1 on my free agents that the Raiders should sign list. Is he the most talented? No. In fact, some of the honorable mentions on this list are way more talented than a lot of the players that I listed. But I do think money has to be a factor, overall fit has to be a factor, and then if you're going to be McDaniels and Ziegler and you're going to preach and you're going to just continue to say that we're trying to build something special, I think Van Noy is that type of guy that's going to be that solid player coach that this organization desperately needs. So we still got some honorable mentions coming up here, but hey, we will be doing Madden simulations live every single Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday in the month of July. So if you don't already have those notifications turned on, if you're not already subscribed, I mean, it's July, man. We're looking for all the content we could potentially find. And if our Madden simulation ends up working out in the Raiders' favor and we end up making the playoffs, well, guess what? We'll also do a playoff simulation as well live here on the Raiders Report. Some other honorable mentions that I wanted to just give my 2 cents on. DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is the top free agent out there. He's still one of the best. I won't say still one of the best receivers. He could still be a top 25, top 20 receiver. I would say he's right up there with Jacoby Myers, and he's better than Hunter Renfrow. If it helps out the offense, let's do it. But I don't think he's coming to the Raiders. Yannick Nagkoue. I know the Raiders trade him away, but hey, more edge rushers. I think he ends up going to Chicago. Jadeveon Clowney. He's going to want a boatload of money. If he just realizes, though, that he's not that type of dude and he's willing to take less money, sure, we could look at it. We need an extra run stopper. Ronald Darby, if they miss on Marcus Peters, and then Dalton Reisner, if, let's say, Netane Moody, Alex Bars, or Greg Van Roten aren't exactly what this team is hoping for at right guard. You can look at somebody like Dalton Reisner, put him at left guard, kick Dylan Parham over to right guard. So one more time, here are the top 10 free agents that I believe that the Raiders should look at before training camp. And hey, if you made it this far in the video, take a screenshot. Don't be afraid to post it on Twitter, post it on Instagram, and tag me, tag Jeremy Chugs, Mitchell Renz 365. You can tag Jeremy at Jeremy_Chugs, Jeremy Chugs. He's just about everywhere on social media. So please, we appreciate you. And seriously, hit that subscribe button, because I know if the Raiders sign any of these guys, we're going to be going live.